How are you
I'm
doing?
well, thanks. I'm really good, thank you.
Lovely to catch up. I've been watching you from afar via LinkedIn
Yeah,
and all the progress you've been making. Um, Freddie and I used to work together a few years ago, but it'd be great, Freddie, if you could just share how we know each other and what are you up to at the moment? What have you been doing in these over the last few years?
yeah. So first things first, I think we first met each other, I think probably coming up to 8 years ago, quite a long time ago, in London. I've lived in London for about 6 years, but I'm originally from Holland. And basically, when I was living in London, I worked at ABI, InBev, the big brewer, especially on Stella Artois, where we did marketing for kind of Western Europe. And I think that's the first time we met and we started working together from especially a PR point of view, working on campaigns like Stella Artois, film, and some other bits and pieces. Yeah.
And then you left and you joined a gin business.
Yeah. Kind of a couple of things happened. Was a little bit fed up with kind of corporate politics and everything else. So I really fancied a change. I got into contact with two private individuals who just acquired a gin distillery up in Warrington, close to Manchester, which was actually a really interesting business already, but doing predominantly kind of B2B manufacturing of gin. And they basically asked me whether I wanted to join them as the first recruit into their kind of new to be found team and company. So I joined them, was with them for almost 3.5 years, and basically helped them kind of with their whole branding side of the business. So relaunched a couple of existing trademarks and brands we had. But most importantly, and I've actually something I'm most proud of, I worked on a completely new to world gin, which is called Ophir, which is like an Oriental spice gin, which took inspiration from the kind of ancient spice roots of the Brits, basically, and in a flavor profile in terms of serve, in terms of distribution, in terms of kind of the whole mix. It was completely different. It was quite successful, actually still successful. I think it's 4 years running, fastest growing super premium gin in the world. So yeah, quite pleased I was able to work on that and help to develop it. Yeah.
It was that kind of gave you the inspiration that I was reading about the spices and the botanicals that gave you. I mean, obviously you're Dutch, and I know you'll talk about the history of the brand that you started and the inspiration from that. But that led you or tipped you to sort of into this new venture, which is very exciting. Not so new now, but
well, it's coming up to 3.5 years, but like really the whole idea started sometimes, I think, as ideas do, very simple kind of starting point. I was in the distillery, and we had this huge kind of botanical room with all these herbs, spices, and fruits. And I thought, I mean, what would happen if you would apply this kind of way of using flavor, and rather than distilling with botanicals, what would happen if you would brew with these botanicals? And that was kind of the first idea where kind of Lowlander started. Back then we didn't have the name, just the idea. And it took me about 1.5 years to develop the whole idea further. So from the initial idea of using herbs, spices, and fruits, then on to recipe development and taking beers in kind of a new direction, from the name, the branding, the design, and everything around it, just the formal business setup and everything. So as I said, almost 1.5 years before I actually handed in my notice and went for it full time. Yeah.
Moonlighting on the job, learning about everything you needed to do. I mean, obviously everything you'd learned up to that point with AB InBev had sort of really been helpful in launching your own beer brand, which is incredible, really. So you moved back to Holland, and then you basically created something from nothing, which is amazing. And what kind of success are you having so far?
Well, quite a bit, to be honest. We deliberately kind of started in the Netherlands and in Amsterdam specifically. So first year, basically, I was just on my own. And kind of by a little bit of luck, I think you always need a little bit of luck, and a helpful friend actually in London, he took a couple of bottles when he visited from Amsterdam, and he sent them to the London Beer Challenge, the International Beer Challenge in London. And basically we won overall best new beer range and best packaging and design at that kind of show and the award show. And that was 4 months in, and that just really meant like we had such a good start, and suddenly people went, okay, this is interesting, which enabled us to kind of grow quite quickly. So as I said, first year was on my own, but now we are kind of already selling in about 18 countries. Just in the Netherlands, we're in over 2,000 accounts, all kind of premium accounts, from hotel bars to cocktail bars, premium retail, kind of the equivalent of a Whole Foods in the Netherlands, and the equivalent of Waitrose in the Netherlands. So those are kind of our hero accounts. And since then, we started working on a couple more international markets as well. So UK, we have a small team where we now really kind of fulfilling the demand for something which is just a little bit different, really. So it's going really well.
And have you been able to do that through self-funding the business, or have you had to go and seek external investment or crowd investing, or how are you managing that?
A bit of everything. It's all the cliches come true, you know what I mean? Even if you hear about it beforehand, or if people tell you about it, but cash is always a pain when you're growing, and especially when you're growing fast. So initially I did a little bit out of my own back pocket, but very honest, I didn't have a lot of savings. So I did kind of the initial design and the initial work. I then had like a friendly contact invest in the business. And since then, 3 more individuals have joined as investors. So no kind of big funds or private equity or any of that. Just 3 individuals, in total 4 individuals, which all have their own kind of background and expertise. And actually that's why I looked for, because I started the business on my own, and despite that I have a lot of help from friends, family, my wife, a lot of other people, it is sometimes quite lonely, despite that you have a team. So I felt I wanted to get a couple of people around me who I could call and rely on in the days when something maybe doesn't go as well as you would like, or in the days when it does go well and you want to share the success. So they've been very helpful, not just with cash, but especially with just supporting me. Yeah.
And it was starting your own business something you'd always wanted to do, or was it something that just felt right at the time?
No, I've always had it in my mind that I would like to do it at some point. My father did it after quite a long career, so he made the move, I think, when he was about 40, and I still remember that very clearly, and I was very proud of him as well. So I always felt I was going to do something, I just didn't know when. But at one point, I just realized I was kind of fed up doing it for other people, and I thought, I think I have the right experience to go at it on my own. I was in a situation without a mortgage, no kids, and again, my wife was very supportive, so I had the opportunity to do it. So I said to myself, I better do this now, otherwise I might forever regret it. So
What I love about what you've done is that often it's either people sacrifice the quality of the product for the sort of the PR and the marketing side, but you're delivering on all aspects, aren't you? I mean, as you say, you're winning awards for the quality of the liquid, but also you're coming up with really fantastic creative ideas. And I think one thing that stood out for me was obviously the Christmas campaign, which I thought was, I mean, it's delivered, I'd say, global media coverage. I've seen this market, other markets as well. But tell us about that and where that idea came from and how you actually made it happen.
Yeah. I think the idea, I'll start with the idea because, again, it was just so simple. I was, in order to kind of stay sane while launching a business and running a business, I tried to go running ideally like 3 times a week. Normally it ends up being once a week. It was January last year, so 2018, and I went for a run from kind of over the canals into the Westerpark, which is like a parking area in Amsterdam, and ran back. And I saw all these Christmas trees outside kind of littering the streets and the canals. And I thought, that's a bit of a shame, isn't it? People they buy them with so much love. They look after it for 2 weeks. They have gifts under it. I mean, the whole family's around it. And then literally they just chuck it out of the window after 2 weeks. It just felt like wrong in a way. So I thought, what could we do? I always knew you could use the kind of needles from the trees, whether it's spruce, pine, any of the different types. Back from my distilling kind of days, so I knew you could do something with it. So I started testing it on beer, and then basically towards the end of last year, we said, okay, you know what? Let's just give it a try. We're gonna send out the message to people in the Netherlands that we will collect their Christmas tree if they put it out for us, and actually we give them a beer in return. And yeah, my God, that went pretty that went pretty big. So amazing. Like it was incredible. We're basically on every single national TV channel, but then actually at some point, I don't know what happened, but it just went, as you said, it went global. So it ended up in Japan. It ended up in a radio station in the Midwest of the States, some kind of local radio station. Loads of interviews, a lot of good coverage. And again, it's just sometimes you need that little bit of luck, I think, to push the business forward. It's really been a big success for us at the beginning of this year. Yeah.
Oh, I think it just stood out. It was such a great idea. Yeah. And I just love the fact that you did actually turn it into a product. It wasn't actually just a PR stunt.
No.
And has it become one of the best-selling products? I hope it has, because
it's a seasonal line, so it sold out way before the end of the season. We couldn't brew up against it because, of course, the brewing takes 6 weeks, so right. You can't immediately kind of back up that demand. But it's been hugely successful. So the needles are macerating as we speak. So we're getting ready for the next batch, which is going to be brewed in September, ready for the winter of 2019. So very exciting. So it's been very successful, and also you kind of asked, like, how do you pull it off? And it's of course it's by hard work. That's the easy bit. But just to share with other people, like sometimes those ideas don't need to cost much either. I mean, this whole thing didn't cost us a lot of money at all. It cost a lot of man hours and a lot of resource. We had so much help from people who found it such a good idea. I think we had over 50 volunteers who helped to kind of pick the needles and collect the trees and everything else. So you get so much support, I think, when you do something which is culturally relevant, and that's been great in itself. Yeah. So yeah.
Did I see you had to crowdfund some resource or budget just to enable that process to happen, because of what
there were just too many trees, really, and we needed experts and we needed help. So
How many trees did you actually collect?
Well, we could have collected thousands. I think within the space of 24 hours, we had 180 nominated trees. Well, initially we thought we'd pick up 100 or something, At one point we had the site blocked because there was too much traffic coming to the site. So we had to rejig the site for it to work, to actually manage that kind of amount of visitors. So I think we had over 5,000 trees nominated to be picked up, but physically it was just impossible to do so. So we basically gave everybody tips how they could use their tree, not just to create their own beer, but they could also we gave them tips how to create their own flavored gin, which is actually quite easy. They could use it in meal preparation. And we had so much feedback from that again, when people said, okay, I mean, it's a shame you couldn't pick it up, but actually we had a great time doing something with the tree ourselves. So,
So obviously next Christmas, you're hoping you're going to be better prepared.
And we're going to do it bigger this time in London, Berlin, and Amsterdam. Yeah.
Oh, you are taking it international as well?
Yeah, in a slightly different way. Yeah.
Right. So how are you going to manage the manufacturing and collection in all these different markets?
I'll tell you next after the winter's been.
All right. Okay. Brilliant. So has that led to more international interest in the brand generally, and more trade?
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it just shows the power of doing something meaningful. I think something which people talk about, something which gets you on the radar, not just in terms of the trade, but also consumers. It's definitely something we continue to do. We're actually working on a couple of new ideas at the moment. So very exciting. Yeah.
The pressure's on to deliver an idea that works as well as that one.
So there's no lack of ideas.
So what is next for you guys? Is it just to keep adding to the number of SKUs, so that different international markets you're interested in? How are you focusing? Because obviously you're a smallish company. So what is the plan over the next sort of 2 years really?
Yeah, the main thing is there's a couple of things which we're working on at the moment. So of course, stating the obvious, we want more people to be able to buy it. So we're working a lot on expanding our distribution in the Netherlands, in the UK, and a couple of other key cities across Europe. So that's clearly one of the main priorities. But then what we see is such a big shift in terms of the consumer preferences for either no and low alcohol products with lower sugar, different flavor combination profiles. So it was never really my intention to have like a vast range. You see a lot of kind of brewers which have like a vast range of different beers. That's never really been in my aspiration, but you just get so many kind of feedback and so many ideas. So we do see such an opportunity to keep kind of innovating. So we've launched quite recently, we've launched 2 lower ABV beers, so around the 2.5% ABV. And in my mind, I mean, there've always been a compromise because people use different techniques and they take a lot of the flavor out, and people have always kind of gone, I don't want it. But with our approach to brewing, and given that we brew with botanicals, I think we figured out a way of actually enhancing the flavor through the use of botanicals, despite the fact that it's lower ABV. Because normally you need the alcohol to carry the flavor, and we have found a way of using the botanicals to do that. So those are like really, really exciting. They're still kind of a little bit ahead of its time, but you can see some of the accounts now picking it up, whether it's Michelin star restaurants, cocktail bars. The Botanist group in the UK has decided to launch it as well. Some fine and high-end delis and stuff. So that's really interesting. So in line with that idea, we're developing further. So literally yesterday, I had the new our first non-alcoholic, fully non-alcoholic beer. So not a 0.05 or whatever people do, but actually a 0.00. And that is just so exciting because we managed to deliver, I think, something which from a liquid point of view, you don't even realize it's non-alcoholic. I think that's the opportunity to actually do something people feel like it's not longer a compromise, but it's something which is just part of the routine. And some people might have one, during lunch, but maybe some people just have it after 2 normal ABV beers and then switch back to something else. So, yeah.
Is it a model internationally? How have you gone with local distributors? Or are you going with global? I mean, how are you actually sort of finding the right partners in the right market and ensuring that they are representing the brand in the right way? Because I think that's the biggest challenge. It's always about finding the right partners. Certain markets where we know there is an opportunity. Of course, having lived in the UK, I just know people are ready for it. Every time I'm over, the feedback is just so good. We get such a good response. So that's where we've said we're going to work with a distribution partner, but actually we're going to have our own team on the ground as well, just to support it, because this requires quite a bit of a hand sell in terms of like explaining the story, explaining the flavors, explaining why it's different, why we use the botanicals. And in other markets, just to give you an example, we just recently started with a really good high-end craft distributor who does a lot of spirits and mixes. It's actually not beer in Poland. And that is such a phenomenal partner already. So it's kind of a hybrid model. It depends on what we want to do where and who we can engage with. But we get more and more requests, but we're actually quite selective in terms of who we work with. Because we want to do this right. We don't want to just kind of, ship a loads of volume and then, within a couple of weeks or a couple of months, it all kind of declines again. We rather do this properly. That's the beauty of doing your own business. We don't have, of course, we have dreams and targets, but we don't have ridiculous budgets. Yeah. So, obviously, things like the Christmas campaign are driving the word of mouth. But are you finding that general advocacy out there? Are you building your own community in those different markets around the brands that are just doing that job for you, and how are you fueling that as well?
Yeah. Yes, we definitely build it. I think initially what we do most is just engage with all the different bartenders and people within the trade. If you look at like within spirits, for example, especially within gin, everybody talks to the bartenders. But I think from a beer point of view, nobody really talks to the bartenders. They normally skip them and go straight to the consumers. And again, I think with us, given our ingredient profile and the kind of accounts we are served in, it is actually the bartender is way more of a gatekeeper in a positive way. He or she would way more often recommend what this person might drink. So we engage with them loads through workshops, through education. We do infusion workshops, so we actually explain how we get flavors into the beers, and they use that to create their own lemonades or their own cocktails or any other infusions. We do a lot of food and beer pairing, but beyond the kind of cliche, here you go, there's a burger and a lager, we actually challenge chefs to work and cook with the ingredients we brew with, so you create flavor bridges between the beer and the food. And that is just such a nice way to kind of not only talk to bartenders and chefs and people within the trade, but then actually invite consumers to come to one of those nights and dinners and tell them the story. And yeah, every time we've hosted one of those events, yeah, it's just been such a good success. Yeah.
Okay, and I guess are you AB InBev keeping an eye on you, and are you keeping in touch with them? You know, what you know, what's the ambition here? Is it to keep building the global brands and, you know, having fun, or are people taking notice already and getting in touch, Freddie?
They're definitely taking notice, but I mean, the problem is with all of those conversations, especially like we're only 3.5 years old, not even 3.5 years old, so it's way too early to kind of look at any of those opportunities now. And actually, to be really frank, I think it distracts at this point in time. There's so much opportunity for us to innovate on a product level. It's for us to grow further on the sales level. I mean, I'm not going to lie, if something happens in the future, something might happen. But I'm building this to actually create something which is meaningful. I think for me, that journey has only just started. So yeah, we got more of our adventure to go.
Well, thanks very much. It's been great catching up. Thanks for sharing your story, and I hope I'll see London over a beer sometime
Definitely,
soon.
Yeah. Let's
Okay,
have a Lowlander together. Okay, talk soon. Bye-bye.